We may never see anything like what Tim Tebow did in 2011 again. In just his first game starting in year 2, he delivered a comeback win that would be the start of a historic run. But before any of this was possible, a little context is necessary. Tim Tebow wasn't supposed to work in the NFL. The college dominance was undeniable. 2 national championships at Florida, a Heisman Trophy, legitimate argument as the greatest college quarterback ever. But the NFL is different. The windows are tighter, the defenses are faster, the throwing motion matters. Tebow's mechanics were unconventional. Long windup, sidearm delivery, inconsistent accuracy. His career completion percentage in the NFL is 48%. That's not a typo. For context, the league average hovered around 62% at that time. Tebow was 14 percentage points below that. In a passing league, he couldn't pass. But 2011 happened anyway. The Broncos were desperate. Kyle Orton wasn't working, and John Fox handed Tebow the keys and said figure it out. And somehow, he did. The stats weren't pretty. 1,729 passing yards, 12 passing TDs, 6 interceptions. Add 660 rushing yards and 6 rushing TDs. Respectable, but not special. What made it special were the fourth quarter comebacks. 6 comebacks in the final 3 minutes of regulation or overtime. The Broncos trailed in almost every game, and Tebow kept pulling wins out of nowhere. Tebow time, divine intervention, belief over skill. The playoff game against Pittsburgh sealed the legend. Tebow threw for 316 passing yards against one of the league's best defenses. First play of overtime is a play action. Demaryius Thomas breaks free for an 80-yard touchdown and the Broncos win. But here's the thing, it was randomness. The running game with Willis McGahee took pressure off of Tebow. And the schedule? They played the AFC West when it was historically weak. The Chiefs went 7-9 and the Raiders and the Chargers went 8-8. The comebacks weren't about precision, they were about opponents playing soft coverage, Tebow scrambling for first downs, and the defense holding on long enough for one more drive. The next year, Peyton Manning became available, Denver signed him, Tebow got shipped to the Jets where Rex Ryan had no idea how to use him. He threw 8 passes all season and just completed 6 of them. By 2013, he was a backup with New England, and by 2015, he was done. Tim Tebow's 2011 season is a blueprint for every outlier year. Health aligned, scheme fit aligned, opportunity aligned. One great season doesn't predict the next. Sometimes the stars align, and then they don't. And Cleveland has a special talent for creating one-year wonders. 2 players, 5 years apart with the same pattern. Peyton Hillis in 2010, Gary Barnidge in 2015. Both came out of nowhere, both had one massive season, and both disappeared immediately afterwards. Let's start with Peyton Hillis in the 2010 season. He had 1,177 rushing yards, 11 rushing TDs, and 61 receptions for 477 yards. He made the Madden 12 cover. A running back who 1 year earlier had 54 yards as a backup in Denver suddenly became the face of a video game franchise. That's how absurd the spike was. The year before, Hillis was a fullback in Josh McDaniels' offense. He carried the ball just 13 times. Then Cleveland traded for him, Eric Mangini installed a power run scheme, and Hillis became a battering ram. The Browns had no passing game. Colt McCoy and Jake Delhomme combined for 16 interceptions, so they handed the ball off to Hillis 20 times a game and let him bulldoze linebackers. For one season, the formula worked. Then 2011 arrived. Hillis held out for a contract extension, he got strep throat, missed games, and when he came back, the explosiveness was gone. 587 rushing yards, 3 TDs. By 2012, he was a backup with Kansas City. By 2015, he was out the league. Nearly half of his career total rushing yards came in that one magical season. Now on to Gary Barnidge. 7 seasons in the NFL before 2015, and 7 seasons where nobody knew who he was. His career high in receiving yards for a season before 2015 was 242. He was a blocking tight end who occasionally ran a route and would make a catch. Then 2015 happened. Josh McCown starts as quarterback for Cleveland, the offense has no weapons, Travis Benjamin is the best wideout, and the Browns are desperate for anyone who can catch. Barnidge suddenly becomes a primary target, 79 receptions for 1,043 yards and 9 TDs. 30-year-old career backup becomes a Pro Bowl alternate. McCown forced him the ball. Barnidge ran simple routes, found soft spots in zone coverage, and caught everything thrown his way. He wasn't running past safeties or really breaking any tackles, he was just open because defenses had no idea who he was. Then 2016 arrived, defenses adjusted, Barnidge still got targets, but the efficiency cratered. 55 receptions for 612 yards and 2 TDs. The Browns go 1-15, and by 2017, Barnidge is out the league. One season of volume-based production, and then nothing. The Cleveland factor is real. In both cases, they force-fed touches to one guy, hope he produced, and when he didn't anymore, they moved on. Health, opportunity, and scheme fit aligned for those 16 games. Then the variables shifted and the production vanished. And going from one AFC North player to another, we have Ickey Woods. The Cincinnati Bengals drafted him out of UNLV in the second round. Not many knew who he was, but by December, everybody knew the dance. Woods rushed for 1,066 yards as a rookie, 15 rushing touchdowns, and the Bengals made the Super Bowl. And after every touchdown, Woods did the Ickey shuffle, a little shimmy in the end zone. It became a cultural phenomenon. The Bengals then lost to the 49ers by 4 points. Joe Montana drove down in the final minutes, John Taylor caught the game-winning pass with 34 seconds left, and the Bengals were one stop away from a championship. Woods finished the game with 79 rushing yards, which was solid but not dominant. Still, the future looked bright. A rookie running back rushing for over 1,000 yards and scoring 15 touchdowns, the offensive line is still intact, the offense is built around the run. Woods should have a decade-long career ahead of him. Then 1989 happened. Week 2 against the Steelers, Woods tears his ACL. The season is over. He comes back in 1990, but he's not the same. The explosion is gone, the cuts aren't as sharp, and he rushes for 268 yards in the entire season. In 1991, he had 97 yards, and by 1992, he had retired. The injuries had robbed him. That's the easy narrative. But was he actually that great to begin with? The 1988 Bengals offensive line was pretty elite. Anthony Munoz at left tackle was a Hall of Famer. Max Montoya at guard was a 4-time Pro Bowler. The line created massive holes. Woods ran through them. He wasn't necessarily the shiftiest or the strongest. He was hitting the hole hard and falling forward. The scheme fit mattered too. Sam Weiss's offense in 1988 was ahead of its time. No huddle, up-tempo, designed to wear defenses down. By the fourth quarter, defensive linemen were gassed. Woods got easier runs late in games because the Bengals controlled the pace. The 1989 injury didn't just end the season, it ended his window. The Bengals offensive line aged, and Munoz retired after 1992. One season of health, one season where the offensive line, the scheme, and the opportunity all fit together. Woods capitalized and became famous, and then the league moved on. The Ickey shuffle outlasted the career. Not the yards, not the touchdowns, just the dance. The Washington Redskins traded 3 first-round picks to move up and draft RG3 second overall. The hype was massive. Griffin just won the Heisman at Baylor, becoming a dual-threat quarterback, explosive athlete, and the future of the position. His rookie season delivered on every promise. 3,200 passing yards, 20 passing TDs, and just 5 interceptions. Add 815 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year, made the Pro Bowl, and posted a 102.4 passer rating. The Redskins went 10-6 and made the playoffs for the first time since 2007. Mike Shanahan's offense was built around Griffin's legs, read option on every other play, defenses had no answer. Do you crash the end and give Griffin the edge, or do you stay at home and let Alfred Morris gas you up the middle? The scheme was revolutionary for 2012. Griffin was faster than linebackers, more elusive than safeties, and just accurate enough to punish defenses that loaded the box. Then the playoff game against Seattle changed everything. Fourth quarter with the Redskins trailing, Griffin dropped back, planted his leg, and his knee buckled. He had already sprained his LCL from earlier in the season, Shanahan kept playing him anyway, and now the ACL tore. Griffin completely crumbled, the season ended, and the career trajectory shifted. 2013 arrived, Griffin came back, but the mobility was gone. He couldn't explode out of cuts, the read option didn't work either, and when the quarterback can't threaten the edge, defenses adjusted. They spied Griffin, forced him to throw from the pocket, and suddenly the limitations showed. 16 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and the Redskins went 3-13. Shanahan got fired, Jay Gruden took over, a new offense, new terminology, and Griffin struggled to adapt. By 2015, Griffin was a third-string quarterback, and then Washington cut him after the season. He signed with Cleveland in 2016, started 5 games, broke his shoulder, and was out for that season. In 2018, he was backup for the Baltimore Ravens, threw 0 passes, and by 2020, he was out the league. We never really got to see that leap. Part of it was the injury, part of it was the coaching changes, and part of it was ego. Reports surfaced that Griffin clashed with coaches, refused to slide, and insisted on running the read option even when defenses had it solved. The randomness in 2012 wasn't just health and scheme, it was timing. Griffin arrived the exact moment when the read option was unsolvable, and 1 year later, it wasn't. One injury didn't just stop RG3, it stopped another potential great player in their tracks. David Johnson was only 25 years old in his second season in the NFL and about to have one of the greatest fantasy football years any running back had had in a decade. 1,239 rushing yards, 16 rushing TDs, 80 receptions for 879 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns, having the most scrimmage yards in the NFL that year. He wasn't just good, he was a cheat code. Bruce Arians' offense in Arizona ran everything through him. Johnson caught passes out of the backfield like a wide receiver. He ran between the tackles like a power back, and he broke off chunk plays in space. He was the entire offense. He was 25 years old in his prime, coming off a historic season, and the Cardinals' offense was built around him. I mean, nothing can go wrong. Then week 1 against Detroit happened. Johnson takes a handoff, gets hit low, falls awkwardly, and it's a wrist injury. He leaves the game, and the next day, the diagnosis came back. Dislocated wrists? His season was over. He played just 27 offensive snaps, and fantasy players who spent their first round pick on him watched their season implode. Johnson returned in 2018 with a new coaching staff. Steve Wilks took over as head coach, Mike McCoy ran the offense, and the scheme is completely different. Arians' offense was aggressive, creative, and designed to get Johnson the ball out in space. McCoy's offense is conservative, predictable, built around inside zone runs that go nowhere. Johnson did his best and rushed for 940 yards and 7 touchdowns. That wasn't nearly good enough. Wilks got fired after one season and Cliff Kingsbury took over in 2019. The offense shifted again. Kingsbury wanted to throw the ball 50 times a game, and Johnson just doesn't fit that. He played 13 games and rushed for 345 yards and caught just 36 passes. The Cardinals don't even use him anymore, and then Arizona traded Johnson to Houston for a second-round pick and DeAndre Hopkins. Johnson got the starting job. He rushed for 691 yards in just 12 games, but he's down to 3.7 yards per carry. By 2021, Houston had cut him, and he's 31 years old and out of the league, retiring in May of 2024. One season of elite production, then a wrist injury, and then 3 years of decline. But the context does matter here. Arians' 2016 offense had no other weapons. Larry Fitz was about 33 years old, Michael Floyd got cut mid-season, and John Brown dealt with injuries. Carson Palmer threw the ball to Johnson because nobody else was open. The offensive line in 2016 was also solid. Mike Iupati, A.Q. Shipley, Jared Veldheer. They opened the holes and Johnson hit them. By 2018, Iupati was declining, Veldheer was gone, and the line fell apart. 1 year where the offensive line peaked, the scheme maximized his skill set, and the team had no other options, Johnson definitely was able to capitalize. But not every outlier season comes from nowhere. Sometimes a player has a solid career, a few decent years, and then has one season where everything clicks. 4 players fit this pattern perfectly: Barry Foster, Vic Beasley, Don Majkowski, and Sidney Rice. Starting with Barry Foster. In 1992 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Barry Foster went off. He had 1,690 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and led the NFL in rushing. He made the Pro Bowl. The year before, Foster had just rushed for 488 yards as a backup. And the year after, 711 yards before an ankle injury ended his season. And then by 1995, he was retired. But the Steelers in 1992 had no passing game. Neil O'Donnell threw for 13 touchdowns all season, the offensive line was built to run block, and Foster got 390 carries. That was 24 carries per game. The volume was absurd. He was hitting the hole, falling forward, and accumulating yards through sheer repetition. The ankle injury in 1993 ended it. Foster tried to come back, but the explosiveness was gone. The Steelers acquired Jerome Bettis a few years later, and Foster became expendable. 1 year of health and volume, then the body broke down. Now on to Vic Beasley. In the 2016 season with the Atlanta Falcons, 15.5 sacks, he led the NFL, and 4 6 fumbles while making the Pro Bowl. The year before, Beasley had 4 sacks as a rookie. The year after, he had 8. By 2018, he had 5 sacks, and by 2021, he was out of the league. So then what happened? The Falcons' defensive scheme in 2016 was aggressive. Dan Quinn dialed up blitzes, Beasley rushed from the edge with no responsibilities in coverage. He was a pure pass rusher for 16 games, and he feasted. Most of his sacks came on coverage sacks, where the QB held the ball too long. Beasley wasn't really beating elite tackles, he was cleaning up when offenses broke down. 2017 arrived, offensive coordinators adjusted, they'd ship Beasley with running backs, they slid protection his way, and the easy sacks disappeared. By 2019, he was a rotational player. By 2020, Tennessee signed him and cut him mid-season, and he played his last year with the Raiders in that 2020 season as well. Don Majkowski in 1989 was elite. He revived the Packers team that was almost dead. 4,318 passing yards, 27 touchdowns while making the Pro Bowl. He came second in MVP voting. The year before, he had only 9 touchdowns in limited action. Lindy Infante's offense in 1989 was built around vertical passing. Sterling Sharp was in his second year becoming a star. The offensive line gave Majkowski time, he threw downfield, connected on deep shots, and racked up yards. But the accuracy was inconsistent. The interceptions piled up, and by 1990, defenses played more too high safety looks. The deep shots disappeared, Majkowski got hurt, and Favre took over just a few seasons later. One season of health and a scheme that maximized his arm strength, the moment defenses adjusted, Majkowski couldn't adapt. He became a backup and bounced around the league and retired in 1996. Finally, we have Sidney Rice in 2009 with the Minnesota Vikings. 83 receptions, 1,312 yards, and 8 touchdowns. The year before, he had 141 yards. And the year after, a hip injury in training camp, he missed most of the 2010 season. When he came back in 2011, he never topped 750 yards again. The variable was Brett Favre. Favre's last great season came in 2009. He threw for 33 touchdowns. The Vikings won 12-4, and Rice was his favorite deep threat. Favre trusted him on contested catches, the chemistry was immediate, and Rice caught everything thrown his way. But the hip injury in 2010 robbed him of his speed, and Rice was never really a technician. He was a jump ball specialist who could run past safeties. Remove the speed and he became a possession receiver. The production fell off a cliff, and by 2014, he was out the league. 4 players, 4 outlier seasons, and the pattern is identical. And the moment one variable shifted, the production vanished. But some players come from complete obscurity. No flashes, no moments. They were just nothing, and all of a sudden, they were a flash in the pan. And that starts with Travis Fulgham in 2020. Undrafted out of Old Dominion, who was cut by the Packers, cut by the Lions, and then picked up by Philadelphia off waivers in week 4. Then for 6 weeks, Fulgham became the Eagles' #1 receiver, 539 yards, 4 touchdowns in 6 games. Fantasy players were scrambling to pick him up afterwards. Then week 10 and week 11 arrived. Fulgham caught just 2 passes for 16 yards combined, and in week 13, he had 0 catches. The 6-week explosion evaporated overnight, and by 2021, he was out of the league. So what happened? The Eagles had no healthy receivers in week 5 through 10. Alshon Jeffrey was hurt, Deshaun Jackson was hurt, Jalen Reagor was a rookie struggling to get open, something he would continue to do throughout his career, and Carson Wentz had nobody else to throw to except for Fulgham. Defenses didn't know who Fulgham was, didn't game plan for him, and he feasted on single coverage. Week 11, the Eagles got healthy, Jeffrey came back, defenses adjusted, and they bracketed Fulgham. All that forced Wentz to throw elsewhere, and the production disappeared. But somebody else who was actually kind of solid was Brandon Lloyd. In that 2010 season with the Broncos, he had 77 receptions for 1,448 yards and 11 touchdowns. In his career before that season, he had 15 touchdowns in 6 seasons combined. Josh McDaniels' offense in Denver was built around vertical passing. Kyle Orton threw deep, Lloyd ran go routes, post routes, anything downfield. He caught jump balls and accumulated yards through aggressive targets, but the consistency was never there. In 2011, McDaniels got fired, the new coaching staff didn't trust Lloyd, and the targets disappeared. He signed with New England in 2012, and just a few short years later, he was out the league and retired in 2014. 1 year of force-fed targets and a vertical offense, and then nothing really. The same would kind of go with Chase Claypool in 2020 as well. He had 62 receptions for 873 yards and 9 touchdowns as a rookie. And in 2021, he had 860 yards. And then in 2022, he got traded to Chicago mid-season. With the Bears, he only had 311 yards, and in 2023, he had 206. By 2025, he hasn't really played in 2 years. Ben Roethlisberger in 2020 was force-feeding her targets to pretty much every receiver. Claypool, Juju, Deontay Johnson, the offense threw basically 60 times a game. Claypool was really good as a rookie, but that was pretty much it. The moment Roethlisberger retired, Claypool became expendable. Braylon Edwards took advantage of the one good season of Derek Anderson. In 2007, he had 80 receptions for 1,289 yards and 16 touchdowns. He would never top over 900 yards again in his career. Anderson threw for 29 touchdowns in that 07 season, the Browns went 10-6, and Edwards was a huge part of it. He was their deep threat. But in 2008, Anderson regressed. He threw for 17 interceptions, and Edwards' production fell off a cliff. He got traded to the Jets, bounced to San Francisco, and retired in 2012. 1 year where the QB was good enough to get him the ball, and then nothing. Next up, we have Justin Forsett, and in 2014 with the Baltimore Ravens, he was special. 1,266 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, and he was just 29 years old. A journeyman backup for 7 seasons. Before 2014, his career best in a season was 429 yards, and he was out the league a few seasons after 2014. Gary Kubiak's zone blocking scheme in Baltimore was perfect for Forsett. The offensive line created cutback lanes, Forsett was patient, hit the holes, and racked up yards, but he was 29. The body had limited tread left, and by 2015, the explosiveness was gone, and the Ravens moved on. 5 players, 5 complete flukes. Production that appeared from out of nowhere and kinda disappeared just as fast. And lastly, we have Josh Gordon to round out this tier. The Cleveland Browns are 4-5 heading into their bye week. Their QB situation is a disaster. Brandon Whedon got benched, Jason Campbell took over, then he got injured, and Brian Hoyer came in as a third string option. The offense had no identity, no consistency, and no hope. Except for one player. That was Josh Gordon at 23 years old in his second season in the NFL and about to have the most dominant receiving season by any player in the worst possible circumstance. 87 receptions for 1,646 yards, 9 TDs in just 14 games. He missed the first 2 games of the season due to suspension, something that we're going to get to a little bit later. And so you can do the math. That's 117 yards per game. Over a full 16-game season, Gordon would have finished with 1,881 receiving yards. Only 2 receivers in NFL history had ever topped over 1,900 yards. That was Calvin Johnson in 2012, and that was Cooper Kupp in 2021. Gordon was on pace to challenge that record while catching passes from 3 different QBs who combined to throw 25 touchdowns and 20 interceptions that season. He caught everything in traffic. He turned 5-yard slants into 60-yard touchdowns because nobody could catch him in space. The year before he had shown promise, Gordon's rookie season in 2012, he had 805 yards and 5 TDs in 16 games, but nobody expected 2013 to happen. Then after that historic 2013 season, 2014 arrived. Gordon got suspended for the first 10 games of the season for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. He came back in week 12, played 5 games, and got 303 yards but 0 touchdowns. The Browns went 7-9, and Gordon's off-field issues became the story of the rest of his career. He was suspended for the next 2 seasons for those off-field issues, and by this point, the pattern was clear. The talent was undeniable, the focus was non-existent. Gordon couldn't stay on the field because he couldn't stay clean. And that's the tragedy. It's the most impressive outlier season on this entire list because nothing external helped him. He did it all alone, and he never got that close again. And so there you have it. The seasons that are not like the rest of their career. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you're new.